There we are. Okay. All right. So Brian, do you want to go ahead and introduce John and we'll get started? I will take care of the questions, Brian, as they come in if we get questions, so you don't need to worry about that.
Can somebody tell Brian he's not
You're
audible.
muted, Brian.
Okay, there you go. I'm just going to tell a quick anecdote about the Soil and Water District, and then I'll quickly introduce John, who I have not yet met, John. So nice to meet you. I'm Brian Williams, ex-com chair. Every now and then I get asked to kick these things off. And so it made me, knowing that you were lined up to speak to us tonight, it made me think of an anecdote, that an experience I had with the Soil and Water District several years ago. As a lot of you know, I live in Dayton, and about 3 years ago, I was at a Little Miami River event in Bellbrook. It was kind of a big, for Bellbrook standards, a pretty big event around the Little Miami. They do it every year. And I had a Sierra Club table. And I'm there, I'm set up. I got the banner in front of the table, and I've got pamphlets, and people are coming by. It got to be pretty crowded for a while. Nobody ever stopped at my table. And I started to notice that I was right next to the Soil and Water table. The Soil and Water District. I'm sure it was the Greene County Soil and Water guy. And there was a crowd there in front of that table the entire time, and the entire afternoon, and nobody ever really stopped to talk to me, except that other people that had exhibits came up and introduced themselves. So when it was all over, I went up and introduced myself to the guy, and I asked him, "What's your secret? How do you attract so many people?" Well, I don't get anybody, and you've got a crowd the whole time. And so I won't tell you what his answer was. I won't, because I think I'd be stealing John's thunder. But I think by the time John is done, I think everybody's going to know what the secret is. The Soil and Water District, everybody's going to know what they have to share with us. And I think it's going to be interesting. So John, we're glad to have you with us. John Nelson, Executive Director of the Hamilton County Soil and Water District. I just quickly looked at the website, John, and I found you've been the Executive Director since March of 2020. You've been with the Hamilton County Soil and Water District since 2012. And I'm going to leave it there and let you take it away. So John Nelson, pleased to have you with us.
Thank you, Brian. You know, Brian, you've given such a glowing, introduction of the soil and water conservation districts. Now, I don't know if I can live up to it, so I'm going to try my best here. But thank you all so much for having me here this evening. And it is a pleasure to talk to you all. I am just going to confirm with you all that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So again, thank you again for having me this evening. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. I'm John Nelson, as Brian said. I've been the director since March of 2020. My board set me up as the director in the beginning of March, and then a week later we got hit with the pandemic. So I've been operating in just crazy times, so it's just been an interesting time because it's just everything's been altered. But I can't tell you just what an amazing team that I work with, and most of you are probably familiar with various members of our team and how efficient this team is. So today I'm kind of thrilled to be able to share some of the great work that our folks are doing within Hamilton County and greater Cincinnati region as well. Our collaboration doesn't stop with the county border, because water doesn't stop at county borders, right? This group understands that. We we work with everyone in the entire region. We work with folks across the river in SD1, Boone Campbell, Kenton County. We work with Dearborn County. We work with Claremont, Warren, Butler, and I'll refer to them all today. So a little background about me. I actually grew up in India. I was sharing with Lauren and with Kathy that I came here to the United States almost 13 years ago, mostly to go to school. And, I have always been a person that has been, the environment has been very close to my heart. I got into appreciating nature when I was a high school student, and I got into romantic literature, English romantic literature, which had to do with nature. And so that's how I fell in love with nature and appreciation of nature. And it's ever since just stuck with me. And I got involved in a lot of activities as a youngster that involved speaking out for the environment. In India, when I was growing up, the biggest thing that we had to deal with was acid rain. And of course, we also had to deal with the crisis around the ozone with CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. So those were things that were dear to me. And I was a, outspoken activist in my younger years against these environmental issues that were plaguing my home country of India. And of course, water quality is also something near and dear to my heart. In India, as you know, most of our rivers and streams are heavily polluted. And so I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of farmers and local communities in India to be able to help improve water quality there as well. So when my education brought me here to the US, I spent about 3 years in school, ended up with a nonprofit, then eventually made my way to the Conservation District as a PR specialist. I was there for about 5 years, maybe 3 years, and then decided to pursue my master's in public administration. And then after I got my public administration, my board decided to kind of make me kind of an assistant to our director, Holly Utrata-Halcombe, who most of you might have worked with in the past. And when Holly retired in 2019, I took on as interim director in March of 2020. I took on the everyday operations of the district. And that leads me to the best part of my job, and that is to work with my team. And our team is made up of a really, really able group of staff members who do a fantastic job. I must tell you, the last employee, the last person there in the red shirt is not a member of our team. He's an MSD employee. He was just giving us a tour of Lick Run. So I just threw him in there, but the rest of them are all our team members. We're a very diverse group. So our office is made of 10 individuals. We are mostly minority with women and immigrants. So we're a very interesting group. Our conversations in our office are very interesting because we bring so many different ideas to the table, very non-traditional ones. And we're really, I think that's our strength, because we're able to look at problems and issues in a very new perspective. And we're able to bring some of the things, especially my fellow immigrant there, Che, is from the Philippines. And, it's very interesting to see how Che thinks so differently about things, because he comes from a public works background that where, in the Philippines, where there's not the same resources that we might have. So he really comes up with ingenious ideas to handle issues as well. And through the presentations, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But to kind of talk a little bit about our team, and you might know some of these members, we've got our education and outreach team, which is Gwen Roth, Sarah Faring, and Sarah Meadows. Gwen mostly does classroom programs, but she also does some programs for high schoolers as caring for Watersheds and Envirothon. These are environmental competitions that are both for the entire state of Ohio. So not only does she do it for Hamilton County students, but also for high school students all across the state, which is a great feather in Gwen's cap for all the great work that she does out of our office. Sarah Faring is our marketing and outreach coordinator, and she does most of our communications. She does our videos. She's a great asset to our team, and we really appreciate all the work she does. And then we've got Sarah Meadows, who is our newest employee. And Sarah Meadows is very involved with our water quality labs in Hamilton County. So she's involved with all 3 water quality labs, both one at the GMR, one that Mill Creek Alliance has, as well as the one in the Little Miami River as well. So again, a fantastic team member, and we're so glad we were able to get her on board. We've got our technical team, and so this is the team that goes out for drainage complaints, for drainage calls, anytime there's a technical issue. This is the team that goes out, and as I can tell, I told you earlier, we've got Che, who is at the helm of this section of our office. We've got Jim Gleason, Aaron Habig, and Olivia, and they also administer the Hamilton County Earthwork permit, which I will talk a little more in detail. I know that Kathy asked me to talk about any kind of regulatory functions that we might perform as a district as well. And so I've actually put a full section on the regulatory aspect of what the district does at a later point in the presentation. And as any good office does, we are a small team, so that means a lot of overlap. So that means that multiple people in our office wear different hats. And so our water quality team also primarily consists of Adam Lehman. Most of you who are involved in water quality in the region are probably familiar with Adam. Adam is it came to us from the private sector. He is just a genius. You know, the way he approaches water quality issues is just outstanding. The way he's able to bring people from different backgrounds together. Just a great guy to have on our team. Aaron Habig also helps Adam. Aaron has a little bit more bent towards agricultural issues. Adam deals more towards water quality issues in urban settings, and Aaron leans a little bit more towards urban agriculture as well as traditional agriculture. And then, of course, Sarah Meadows, we've got who deals more with the water quality aspect of things as well. So we are so thrilled about that team. And then our board, of course, you know, we are a separate political subdivision within the state of Ohio. So we've got a very diverse board. And this is the first time, I think, in our history that we've got a majority women board as well. We've got Jane Wickey, who's our chairperson at the helm. We also have Kara Shermer and Laura Boyd. And then we've got Scott Huber and John Mangan. Again, faces that are familiar within issues around water quality within our region. So I'm just pleased to, I have 5 bosses, and all 5 bosses are great. And they're great to work with, and they all bring such different expertise to our team. And so we're very thankful for a team like that. And so they meet every month. Our board meetings are open to the public. Anyone is welcome to attend. So if you want to know more about the daily business of the district, you're more than welcome to come and attend one of our board meetings. It's on second Tuesdays of every month at 3 o'clock in our office. And obviously our elected offices, you know, these are elected offices. All of them are elected officials per Ohio Revised Code, and their terms are basically our 3-year terms. So at end of every 3-year term, basically positions come vacant. So we're, you know, and there's a nominating committee made up of board members that are always looking for other board members. So if anyone is interested in running for a board, you know, typically the search will begin in the middle of a year to get candidates for the following year's election. So if anyone's interested to be my boss, if you know anyone on this board, feel free to reach out to them, and they can give you more information on how to run for our board. It's a great team to work with. All right, that's a little quick introduction about who we are and what we do, individuals within the board. I'm going to jump into a little bit about the history of soil and water conservation districts, but I told Kathy and Lauren that I would like to keep this entire presentation a little informal. So I'll kind of stop at this moment, and if there's any questions, I'll kind of give a few brief moments if anyone wants to throw up any questions, either in chat or just, you know, vocally make those questions heard. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So right now there aren't any questions in chat, John. So unless there are any, yeah, we should have mentioned that at the beginning. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and then when John stops to take a breath, then we can, oh, here we go. There is a question. Are there model zoning regulations for water runoff?
So that is a great question, Kathy. So when it comes to zoning regs, our district, unfortunately, is completely out of the loop. So that is Hamilton County Planning and Zoning. And honestly, I would be doing disservice if I talked on that subject. I know so little about zoning. I'm not a planner by training. So I'd be happy to get you the right contacts within Hamilton County Planning and Development to be able to answer those questions. And I believe, don't quote me on this. I know this is being recorded, but don't quote me on this. But I think there is an effort at Planning and Development to get some model regulations, generally speaking, on various other areas of zoning. So there might be some work that is already going on that subject. But James Noyes, who is the Director of Planning and Development, would be the ideal person to ask that question to.
Okay, thank you. We got one question from Julia. Are you connected to the county extension service?
Yes, we are not connected, but we work very closely with the county extension. So, you know, in the past, we had more stronger ties when with 4-H and such. But we're trying to rekindle some of those ties back to 4-H. So I know we're very involved with the county 4-H fair, which happens in Crosby Township now. And, you know, we're of course very strongly connected with Farm Bureau as well to work with the farmers in Hamilton County. So in that sense of the matter, we are work very closely. We have a good partnership with the county extension, but no, we're not tied in the hip, so to speak, or there's no you know, official or managerial overlap between the two agencies.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lauren. All right, let us jump right into the next section of my presentation, which is the history of soil and water conservation districts. All right, so in the 1930s, the US underwent a significant issue. A significant issue was placed in the laps of legislators as well as bureaucrats in federal government, and that was the Dust Bowl. So this was just a massive loss of topsoil from our agricultural fields. And this was primarily because of poor agricultural practices. So there was just this idea of clearing forests, huge amounts of forests, as you know, people were moving and occupying land through the entire part of the country. And so they were clearing huge swaths of forests and you know, using them for agriculture, but there was pretty bad conservation practices in that you know, they would just you know, till the soil after a growing season was complete. So there was just soil just sitting there bare that was ready to be eroded either by wind or soil. So this was just something that farmers were not familiar with. And so when the Dust Bowl hit in the 1930s, there was this one gentleman from North Carolina who was a USDA employee, Hugh Hammond Bennett. And Hugh Hammond Bennett basically went before Congress and testified. He said, hey, look, we have a problem. And that is that our soil, you know, we lose our soil due to erosion, and we got to do something about it. And so it was interesting. If you have an opportunity, look up the PBS. There's a PBS documentary on the subject, which actually shows some very dramatic footage. But apparently, the day of his you know, his testimony to Congress, I believe that a big cloud of the dust basically rolled in to DC, and he basically everyone looked at the windows, and there was just this darkness that fell on the entire building during midday, and basically it was on cue. And Hugh Hammond Bennett made a case for why we needed conservation practices. And so that kind of led President Franklin D. Roosevelt to write a letter to the governors of all the states to basically start conservation districts. And that's how conservation districts came to be in all of the states. And the primary goal of the conservation district was to go to every community at a grassroots level, identify 3 to 4 or 5 farmers, and basically make the conservation district with 5 local members, community leaders, who would then go and implement these conservation practices on their land and show how this was beneficial for the environment, but also for their bottom line as farmers, because they were conserving soil. And so that would eventually kind of create this grassroots creep, because every neighbor that would see that this farmer was very successful with conservation practices would turn around and apply those same conservation practices on their land as well. So that was kind of the quick history of conservation districts in the entire state. So moving on to Hamilton County Conservation District, we started in 1945. And on the right, that little sheet of paper, that was actually our first meeting minutes from August 2nd, 1945. So we've been here for 76 years. And for 76 years, we've been dealing with erosion, conservation, water quality in Hamilton County. And somebody was talking about the county agent for the extension. So basically the county agent at that point in time, named Carl Beebe, was basically the one that kind of got us started. The first meeting was actually held at his house with 5 board members. One of them who had been with the US Army and was in Germany and saw some soil conservation practices that were practiced in Germany and thought it would be useful for them to apply some of those conservation practices here in the US as well. So it was interesting. So if anyone wants to see this document, I'd be happy to share with them. We have all of our minutes going back all the way to 1945. It's very interesting to see the history of conservation in Hamilton County. So in 1945, when we started, we mostly were agriculture. We had a very, very tiny budget. I think it was every board member contributed $8 towards the survival of the conservation district. So that was our annual budget. Just in this year, we had our budget was about close to 1.2 million between our grants and county appropriations and our state match and such. So just to imagine that 75 years ago, there was conservation work that was not being done in under $50, whereas now there's X amount of dollars, a good amount of dollars that's being spent towards conservation in Hamilton County. So we started in 1945. For many decades, we remained very agricultural. At one point, we focused on putting in farm lakes. There was a lot of farms in Hamilton County that did not have a watering hole for their cattle or for any kind of livestock. And so conservation districts worked with a lot of landowners, put in a lot of ponds and lakes, farm lakes, and even till date, some of those lakes exist. So if we look at some of our old surveys and such, we see where conservation district got involved, helped the farmer put in lakes, and those lakes still exist. In 1960s, as Hamilton County got more urban, more housing started going into various parts of the county. We started seeing a lot of urban issues like erosion, hillside stability because of our geology and such. And so we got involved in that aspect of the urban issue and urban assistance. We kind of kept our farm roots, but also started getting involved a little more in urban related issues. So in 1992, the county commissioners passed the Hamilton County Earthwork regulation, and they wanted to know if the Soil and Water Conservation District could take on those regulations. And I'll talk a little bit more about those regulations and what those regulations entail. But in 92, we took on those regulations and started doing that for the county commissioners. That was really the turn in the district becoming more urban and doing a very, very urban program while still keeping our agricultural roots. And then in 2003, we had the components of the Clean Water Act, which is the MS4 permit that kind of rolled in, and that portion of the stormwater district regulations also got incorporated into the earthwork regulations as well. So to kind of quickly encapsulate what we've always done in the past, our legacy programs with traditional agriculture, technical assistance to landowners, farmers, and just legacy education, primarily focused at agrarian communities. And then we kind of moved out of that very simplistic model over the many, many years to this model where we're talking about MS4 and beyond. So our education became more education for behavior change. We started doing more targeting education here, especially in the 2000s. We got the Earthwork program in 92, and then it was further became a lot more stronger with the MS4 permits, with the sediment erosion control aspect of it. Then we got involved in public involvement thanks to the MS4 permit also. Our stream health program grew pretty drastically. Now, of course, as we stand in the forefront of new environmental issues, our district is very involved in green infrastructure, sustainability and climate change, and environmental justice are our goals as we grow our programs towards the future. All right. That was...
John,
yes.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry,
Sure.
what is MS4?
So MS4, so the M stands for municipal, separate stormwater sewer system. So basically, an MS4 is a jurisdiction. So so based on the NPDES Phase 2 permit, which is a permit that addresses stormwater in various jurisdictions. So they basically look at urbanized jurisdictions. So it could be a city, it could be a township, and they basically establish it as an urbanized location. And so there's various criteria to how it is determined to be a urbanized area. And all of Hamilton County is urbanized. So all of our jurisdictions are what's called an MS4 jurisdiction. So in that, basically, these are municipal, the M stands for that, separate storm sewer systems. So basically it talks about cities that have a separate storm sewer system, a system that is separate, opposed to, like, say, a combined sewer overflow. So this permit is to regulate those communities, and it's a US EPA regulations that's handed down to Ohio EPA and then handed on to local jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I am ready to move on a little into the next section of my presentation, which is the programs of the district. I'll take a short break and kind of open it up for any questions at this time.
There's nothing in the chat, so unless anybody wants to unmute themselves, I think we're good to go.
Well,
Okay.
I'll ask a question just because you finished on the MS4 and the discharges of stormwater and water quality issues. Are you interested in also looking at water quality? I mean, not just water quality, but water quantity, because we're having so many more flooding issues now. Is the district getting involved in that or working with the other partners?
Yeah, Marilyn, we are very interested in quantity. Of course, you know, there's the different county agencies that are dealing with it as well. So we try to partner with them. So I know Kathy is very involved in the Cooper Creek Collaborative. And, you know, one of the things that we're trying to address in the Cooper Creek Collaborative is the flashy flows within the stream system, where, you know, in the rain event, we get so much water, and then after a while, the streams are pretty much dry. It's like bone dry, and there's no aquatic habitat for our aquatic wildlife to survive. So it's like a flushing effect. So our district is definitely involved in addressing some of those stream health issues in terms of water quality, but also the speed at which sometimes our streams are flushed out, because that's so detrimental to our, the habitat in which our aquatic life live.
And more and more, it's becoming very detrimental to people who live in communities that are affected by these big climate storms. But
Absolutely, and that's one of the services that the district offers, which is, we'll go out and do like consultation for people who live on stream banks and who have stream bank erosion. So, we'll go out and provide a free consult with them and just give them pointers. We can't design anything because we're not equipped to do that, or we're not allowed to do that, but we could definitely provide recommendations, point them to its resources to help with stream bank erosion on their property. So yeah, definitely agree with you. Those huge rain events are detrimental to multiple people. We've had farmers who complain that it absolutely devastates their farms as well, because it basically erodes so much. It basically erodes little tiny streams within their farms, causing just portions of their farm to be flooded and making it not growable. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we can move on to the next section. And the next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about the programs. I'm going to actually play an 8-minute video. And the video is primarily to cover some of the programs. This is a video that we created for our 2020 annual meeting. So it's kind of a great overview. It's a little dated because it goes back a year or so, but still the programs are still very relevant. We're still working on a lot of these programs and such. So yeah, certainly these cover some of the programs that we are currently doing as well. And I'll talk a little more about the programs as well on the other end of the video.
My name is Olivia.
Hey, this is Adam.
Hi guys, I'm Education Specialist Gwen Roth.
Hi, my name is Sarah Faringwood.
We are
Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District.
If you work, live, or play here in Hamilton County, you've probably met one of our amazing team members. The things that we do range so much in complexity. We may work with a small group of scouts with their storm drain labeling program, or we may work with a large school district in their STEM education. We review plans ranging from small decks and fences on individual lots to large $1-million commercial developments that bring jobs and economic development to Hamilton County. Whether it be a library program, soil testing, water quality monitoring, or a large cutting-edge stream restoration program, we put Hamilton County residents and their conservation needs first. The goal of this video is to highlight some of that great work that we've done in Hamilton County in the year 2019 and 2020. Enjoy.
The first project that we'd like to highlight is the Cooper Creek Collaborative, a collaboration of local public agencies and nonprofits working on a 1-mile demonstration watershed. The goal of the collaborative is to address urban hydrologic alteration, which is the greatest issue facing urban watersheds. Urban hydrologic alteration is caused by the increasing amounts of impervious surfaces within our watershed. One of the major issues caused by the phenomena is increased erosive flows.
Erosive flows constitute a significant disturbance event to the in-stream wildlife, but it also causes excessive stream bank erosion, sediment pollution, and it destroys habitat. And as you can see, this is a major problem in this stream right here.
A consistent availability of water is essential for the survival of the wildlife within a stream. Urban hydrologic alteration impacts the base flow of streams.
And this is a particularly significant problem for smaller creeks like this one that go completely dry between rain events. And when a creek goes completely dry between rain events, that constitutes a complete loss of aquatic habitat.
Yet another innovative program spearheaded by the district is the life staking event.
Stream bank destabilization is a major problem in urban areas due to urban hydrologic alteration, but also in rural areas and really everywhere due to clearing trees and shrubs right up to the stream's edge and straightening channels for development and agricultural use. And it's also a major driver of sediment pollution and habitat destruction.
In 2019 and 2020, the volunteers harvested and installed over 3,000 live stakes, which will mature and provide stream bank stability and other ecosystem services to miles of streams within Hamilton County. Our Earthwork team is tasked with the mammoth job of administering the Earthwork permit in Hamilton County.
The district administers the Earthwork regulations for the Hamilton County Commissioners since 1993. It's got twofold objectives. The first one is the erosion and sediment control, and the second one is the hillside and slope stability.
Plan reviewers pour over hundreds of plans ranging from simple decks to large multi-phase subdivisions.
Staff conducts two types of plan reviews to ensure compliance with the Hamilton County Earthwork regulations. During an erosion and sediment control review, we look for information about the practices that will be implemented throughout construction to manage stormwater, prevent erosion, and control sediment. Plans are also reviewed for compliance with the geotechnical requirements to ensure that hillside and slope stability is not impacted by construction.
In addition to reviewing plans, the staff also regularly inspect the sites during various stages of development to keep it in compliance with regulations. 3,949 inspections were conducted in 2019 alone.
When arriving on a site to perform an inspection, I am making sure that all the proper sediment erosion controls are installed around the site. These are usually installed around the perimeter of the site to make sure that no sediment or sediment-laden water is running off into streams, creeks, or other people's properties.
The Earthwork staff don't limit themselves to construction sites. They provide landowner consultations and are also actively involved in agriculture and forestry-related land management. The district is also tasked with the job of administering the Agriculture Pollution Abatement Program.
Anytime we receive a complaint, we are there within 24 hours to investigate. Investigation will be to see if there is any issues that need to be addressed, and we work with the landowners to solve anything that might be problematic.
One of the most crucial functions of the district is education. The district has many unique and innovative programs to further the conservation message in Hamilton County. One such program is Caring for Our Watersheds.
So the district also runs the Caring for Our Watersheds Ohio contest, and Caring for Our Watersheds is a high school competition where 9th through 12th grade students actually identify a problem they see in their neighborhood and come up with a solution to it. They'll write a proposal about that solution, turn in the proposal to us, and we'll have a group of judges review those proposals. The judges will come up with the 10 best proposals. And those 10, we will match up with a mentor and we'll give them up to $1,000 to go implement their idea. In 2019, we actually took the Caring for Our Watersheds contest and expanded it to the entire state of Ohio. We had over 135 entries and almost 300 students propose great ideas about what they could do in their local community to help their watersheds.
The district also provides education programs that are traditional to SWCDs.
The district has a robust education program, and we offer free programs to classrooms, libraries, summer camps, even scout groups. We also do teacher workshops.
The 2020 pandemic drastically changed the nature of education in classrooms.
So we've set up with teachers where we can actually Zoom or Skype or do a Google Meet into their classroom, and we can do a demonstration or a Q&A with the kids so they can learn about some of the conservation issues. We've also developed a website with all kinds of virtual activities, lesson plans, things they can do at home, videos that the students can have, and teachers can directly download that to their Google Classroom or Schoology account, and then they can assign it to their kids right away. So we're still getting that conservation message out to students in Hamilton County.
The innovation continues into our administrative functions as we bring a 75-year-old organization into the 21st century.
We have scanned all of our meeting minutes all the way back to 1945. The Earthwork staff is working to convert their historic records.
This begins with a massive digitalization of records.
I am so glad that we were able to show you some of the great things we've done in the past year. We're so excited for all the wonderful projects that we've lined up for the future. We hope to see you in the community soon.
All right. I'm sure you guys don't want to watch that video again, but I know there was a lot, but I figured that was a quick way to make sure I could talk about a bunch of programs very quickly. We thought through that script a lot of times and made sure we had a good flavor of all the programs. So any questions about the programs at all?
So there's nothing in the chat, but just so I want to clarify, because again, I told you about this full parking garage situation. So you guys could come out or have a meeting even over the phone to talk about the project. That's the kind of things that you do.
So Lauren, so typically when we get involved in the construction process is that it'll go through Hamilton County zoning, and then basically they will once the zoning has been approved, then that's when they apply for their permits. And when they apply for the permits, that's when we first will see it, right? So it basically come to us for permit to look at the stormwater, to look at the construction site. Stormwater practices, make sure that they have a plan to make sure sediment remains on the construction site and does not leave the construction site. And then we'll also look at it from a health site stability perspective as well, to make sure that they're not, if it's on a high landslide risk slope, that we're making sure that we're requiring a geotechnical review of the site, and that our geotechnical engineer will also sign off on that, saying that whatever plans that they're hoping to put in there are adequate for that, for that development, whatever it is, to go in place. So that's our role typically in such a situation. So when it comes to on-site retention and detention and how stormwater, is managed after the construction site is put in place, that is planning and development has its own stormwater division, and they are the ones that review it for that. And the person in charge there is Muhammad Islam. And he is the engineer there, and he reviews all the plans for what happens after the construction site is completed. How does stormwater behave on that site? That is the plan that he will approve. And so that's definitely, if that particular development that you're talking about is in that permit review stage, then Mohammed will probably have a copy of that plan, and he might be able to advise you on how they're managing stormwater in the future. So if, say, for example, if the construction on this project begins, and if there's no silt fence, if there's no barrier controls, and if there's stormwater leaving that site and it's taking sediment with it, then you would call our district, and we'd be able to come in and enforce that, make sure the perimeter barriers are set up. There's 3 different ways to do that, and there's a little more than 3 ways to do that, but 3 primary ways that we recommend. And so we'll make sure either a silk fence is put up, a berm is set up, or a filter sock set up. So we'll make sure the perimeter controls are in order, and also the on-site controls are in order as well.
Okay, thanks, John. We've got some other questions here.
Sure.
Are there any details on carbon capture or carbon sequestration projects?
Yeah, that great question. So one of the way that we handle carbon sequestration is through our agricultural program. So for about 2 years ago, we completed what was called a cover crop program, where we worked with Hamilton County farmers in Western Hamilton County to basically help them implement cover crops. So cover crops are basically crops that grow, it's planted during the season and it kind of matures off season. So it does a few things. It basically fixates nitrogen in the ground, but also sequesters carbon in the ground as well. So that's a great way to handle carbon sequestration in agricultural fields. So the governor has actually signed the H2 Ohio program. I think it launched a couple years ago now, but it's slowly making its way through the rest of the state. So at first, they kind of focused it towards the Western Lake Erie Basin. Now it's kind of spreading out through the state. And so when those dollars come into Hamilton County, we'll be able to do more cover crop projects in Hamilton County because we'll be able to get the farmers some funding to implement cover crops as well. So we're very excited about that project and the potential of getting some of that state dollars to do that work in Hamilton County.
And then kind of a follow-on for that, I guess, is are climate effects or impact studied when you model agriculture or development projects?
So right now, it's we're not doing anything that is directly with that might be termed as a study, primarily because I think the calling of the district is to go and implement projects and not necessarily research. So we're more, at least that's how we're set up in the Ohio Revised Code, that we are there to primarily do more projects. But that said, I think Kathy can attest to it with Cooper Creek Collaborative. We have many university partners like NKU and UC who end up doing the research part of it. So while we are doing these practices, we tag along with some of our university partners who are tasked to do this research and have the research potential to be able to take on some of those research components for sure. So with respect to the climate change aspect of it, we haven't done any direct research on climate change necessarily, but there have been a few ideas that have been floated around, and we're always open to working with our research partners, and we're always looking at opportunities for data sharing. So we're a public agency, so all of our data, of course, is public information. So anytime someone makes a public records request for data for research, we're happy to share that information with them for sure.
That's excellent, because I might be giving you a call. Okay, next question. How do people know who to call when they see erosion or somebody filling a stream or valley? And do you cover all of Hamilton County, or do other agencies address those issues?
So that's a great question. I'll start from the back, and that is that, yes, we cover all of Hamilton County. Now, when it comes to construction sites, erosion, City of Cincinnati, City of Norwood, Loveland, City of Wyoming, I believe, and a few other small cities tend to take care of this by themselves. But that said, that doesn't mean that you can't call us. You can still call us, but we'll direct you to the right person within those particular jurisdictions. But all of the townships within Hamilton County fall under our jurisdiction. So if you see sediment erosion within a construction site in Hamilton County, feel free to call us. If you're having erosion outside of a construction site, say for example, you have a stream bank erosion, or if you have erosion in your property, we do a courtesy call. Well, if you call us, we'll answer the phone. We'll pull up your property on GIS, and we'll try to troubleshoot some of the issues on GIS. We have great topographical maps. We've got some very good aerials of the land. We'll try to figure things out. And if you're not able to figure things out on the phone, then we'll do a site visit and provide some consultation for sure. And that is no cost to any homeowner in Hamilton County. They can call on us, and we're happy to help. So.
Okay, so Next question. What is your approach to climate change storms? People are being flooded who don't live near a stream and aren't in the floodplain. Not sure if you already answered that, but are you doing anything different now with all these climate change storms?
So we're basically, our regulations are based on the regulations that the Ohio EPA gives us. So, everything is based on the engineering that Ohio EPA has already handed out to us through the land development manual. But I know that engineers across not only the country, but across the world are looking at some of those, standards, or what is a 100-year flood versus a 50-year flood, and are looking at those standards and asking the questions, are those standards still good today, or should we revisit them? And I know, so that I think that in this situation, we will have to follow this engineering standards because we are based, what we can enforce is based on the regulations that it's given to us, and we can't. So we're kind of waiting on those regulations to kind of catch up. So, but we're, whatever we can do in the meantime to help residents, we're happy to do that. But when it comes to the enforcement aspect of it, that of course falls on the engineering side of things, and we're waiting for those standards to be updated.
Yeah, things are changing so quickly. So this is from Kathy, and Kathy, I'm not 100% sure what you mean. Another training would be good. Do you mean with John that
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The Sierra Club, 5 or 6 years ago, had a training on how to recognize soil erosion, soil runoff, as it is the #1 pollutant of streams, and then how to report it. I became passionate about doing that. I didn't go out and look for anything, but as I was driving around, there would be an apartment complex or this or that, and there would be absolutely no protection to streams. So I ended up just calling the EPA because it was too complicated, because I might be in Warren County, or I might be in Claremont County, or different places. But it was an excellent training. I forget who did it. It was somebody from one of our water people from Matt Troyer did it. I suggest that, since the only way to catch this is self-report or being reported, you need some eyes out there to do it. Because I know that the Soil and Water District doesn't go out and look for issues like this. They're waiting for someone to tell them. So I'm suggesting we have some training like that again, John, in some format, maybe through Sierra Club again, because that's the only way you get to hear about these things. And I would say, after I reported these, 2 weeks later, I would see the silt things go up, or things would change. So it did have an effect, a good effect.
Yeah. Now, Kathy, you make an excellent point. I did want to point out, so we do inspect construction sites that we review that are over an acre. So if it's a site that's over an acre, they're required to have an inspection every month. So our inspectors will go and surprise visit them and make sure that their sediment controls are in place. And if it's not, they will be issued a list to correct those erosion and those issues on the site. And if they don't address them, we issue a notice of violation, and they have 30 days to fix that. If they don't fix it, they get a second notice of violation. And if they don't, then they have 15 days at that point in time. So if they don't rectify the site within 45 days, they're actually issued a stop work order from our office and referred to the Hamilton County prosecutors. So we do take it very, very seriously. Our regulations does give us powers to enforce non-compliance. And so we will regulate these construction sites. But to what Kathy says, yeah, any construction site that is less than an acre is exempt from inspections. So the only way we find out when somebody is, they still have to follow the regulations, but they don't get inspected. So if there's a construction site that's less than an acre and they don't have any controls, feel free to call the Soil and Water Conservation District. If it's within our jurisdiction, we'll go out and do an inspection. If it's out of our jurisdiction, we will make sure that the appropriate agency is notified and some actions taken on that. So
I think we need another training for at least Sierra Club members. What is erosion? What is something that can be reported? I think that there would be an interest, and maybe that would be something we could work on doing together.
Yeah, happy to help, Kathy.
Like citizen science. Okay, next question. Is the Ohio Department of Transportation subject to your rules for runoff, especially along I-75?
So
What-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
What best management plans should ODOT be following?
Okay, so I can't speak to ODOT because ODOT is actually their own, they are self-regulated because they're an agency of the state. So basically any ODOT projects, our office doesn't have any jurisdiction on, even if it's happening on township or if it's happening within Hamilton County, because they are a state agency, they're self-regulated, and they have to, of course, report to the EPA on how they're doing sediment erosion control. But unfortunately, that is an agency, or that's the construction site that our district has zero jurisdiction over.
Okay. Another question about the climate change stuff. I think everybody's really concerned and interested. Are you able to model the effects of local downpours like cloudbursts, since they are more frequent now with climate change?
So unfortunately, no, that's not something that we have, the technology to, the resources to. Again, like I said, we are more focused on implementation of projects. I think the closest thing that I can say that we monitor in terms of water quantity, we've got a flow meter in Cooper Creek to study how how Cooper Creek reacts during a rain event. So we've got a flow meter. I think we might have even more than one flow meter there in Cooper Creek. And if anyone's interested in the data from that, I can get you in touch with Adam Lehman, and Adam will be able to share what data he's collected there in Cooper Creek.
Okay. We've got a whole litany of questions now, John.
Oh, no, that's perfect.
Do you have, hold on, wait a second. Do you have a project that would show homeowners how to build soil, how to increase carbon capture and enrich soil without fertilizers and make the soil more capable of absorbing rain? Basically, how to enrich soil.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So actually our education program for next year is actually focused on lawn management. So we're actually doing a regional program to target lawn management in the greater Cincinnati area. We're partnering with our other soil and water conservation districts in Ohio and with SD1 across the river. We're really going to address on what changes a homeowner can make to improve infiltration on their property. And also, of course, to also think about thinking outside the box in terms of just a plain old lawn, right? Because I think lawns are nice, but they're a little, they're really not the best. We could talk about rain gardens. We could talk about more pollinator driven planting in our lawns. We could talk more about in terms of more native plants. So we're really talking about a series of different approaches to not only improving infiltration on your property, but also to address some of the monoculture that our lawns have gotten used to, and to address a little more, pollinator friendly gardens as well. So.
Okay, and could you talk about cut and fill, please?
I would need a little more background about that. So cut and fill is a pretty standard construction practice. So typically when in terms of when somebody submits for a grading plan, an engineered grading plan, they will tell us how much they're cutting, where they're filling, or how much soil they're bringing into the construction site, or how much they're taking out. So that's just the general gist of the cut and fill. But if there's any specific issues around cut and fill, I'm happy to address them.
Awesome. And what about erosion sediment going into Witten Woods Lake?
Witten Woods Lake. So that's on park property, and the park is actually its own MS4. So any kind of sediment that might be entering the any streams in the park or any kind of erosion from the park property will be Great Parks. But I know the person, I believe it's Amanda Nuri, who is the watershed manager for the Great Parks. I don't know if that's her specific title, but whoever asked the question, if they want me to pass that contact over to them, I can definitely get you in touch with the parks folks for water quality and just MS4 in general.
Thank you. You got that, Marilyn? Marilyn asked that question. So this
a lot of that erosion comes down the tributaries and it's filling in the lake again. It wasn't dredged that long ago, so we're gonna have another very expensive dredge and fill operation go.
Yeah. So the easiest way to address that, Marilyn, is to do some stream bank restoration, and that's what we tried to do with those live staking projects by putting more trees on these stream banks. Even in a highly erosive event, the roots from the fairly mature trees should be able to hold the stream bank a little better and prevent it from eroding so quickly. So that was kind of our goal with doing those live stake events. Unfortunately, last year we kind of had to do it in a muted format. We really got a lot of traction in 2019 when we did it and early 2020, but we kind of had to put a damper on that the last year because the pandemic and bringing all those people together. So hopefully here 2020, the winter of 2020, we'll be able to go out and harvest more live stakes. To kind of give you a little bit of that program, it's great because we harvest so much live stakes in the winter and they actually have to be stored over the winter in freezers or coolers and then have to be planted in the spring. The Bengal Stadium and Rhinegeist Brewery have stored those in their coolers for us, which is a great partnership there to work with the Bengal Stadium as well as with Rhinegeist. And so then when spring rolls around, when the weather starts getting a little warmer, we take those out. Our volunteers go out and we install them on stream banks and try to, build up the resiliency of those stream banks. So we reduce some of that stream bank erosion. And we'd love to have more partners in that project. So when we're ready to roll that out, we'll definitely reach out to the CR Club. And if you all want to partner, we'd love to have that partnership for sure.
Oh, that sounds great. Last question, near and dear to my heart. Do you address invasive species? And
yes.
Conservation issue.
I'm a very loving and friendly person. I never hate anything, but if there's one thing that I hate, it's honeysuckle. And so, yes, we do have a honeysuckle, we're big on honeysuckle removal, but we also are working with, we work with our federal partners with NRCS, and we actually have match dollars that become available through NRCS occasionally for honeysuckle removal projects as well. So if you know of any properties that might be willing to do a large scale honeysuckle removal project, just reach out to us. And, we have Sarah Meadows, who I mentioned earlier, is actually certified for honeysuckle removal, and she's very excited to do those projects, and she hates honeysuckle as much as I do, so she would love to partner with people to do that. The reverse of it is, of course, not to leave it empty, right? Because when you leave it empty, there's more honeysuckle that comes back in. So every fall we actually do a native tree sale as well, where we try to buy trees large scale from a nursery, and these are all native trees, and we try to sell them at as close to at cost as possible. We don't try to make any money out of it. All of our labor is basically donated, so to speak, and we do it in partnership with Great Parks. I think last year, not last year, but this year, I think we sold over 1,000 trees, if I'm not wrong. So all native. So that's a great way to not only remove invasives, but add native trees back in those places as well. So
that's awesome. We'll definitely be in touch about that. And do you hate lesser celandine too, Marilyn?
Yes, with a deep passion. Yes.
All right, John. Well, I hate to say this, but I don't know. It's 8:05. I don't know. I don't know. Brian, what do you think?
I had one other question, if I can ask it. On that honeysuckle removal, John, is that only for private property or is that applied to like a township?
So Kathy, that's a good question. NRCS prefers to fund private property as much as possible. But that is not to say that we cannot explore it. I think on a case by case basis, I've had NRCS work with us on some private property. We've done seasonal high tunnels on private property with NRCS funding. So don't let, that's the criteria. But don't let that criteria hold you back from at least starting the conversation. We could certainly go and talk to our NRCS rep and see what we can do for sure.
Sycamore Township has 16 acres of undeveloped land. Adam and I have been over there and looked at it. At one time it was scheduled to be a park, but the levy didn't pass many years ago and it's just sat fallow. FALLOW, and it's full of honeysuckle and binder knot and things like that. And it is a big area to clear. So I would like to find a way to initiate that, because at some point it could become a very nice little park, because there's not much land left like that in Hamilton County.
Yeah, Kathy, I'll probably be meeting our NRCS rep next week. So I'll kind of start that conversation with them and see if there's an opportunity for that.
Thank you.
So we have one more question from Karen, who wants to know, how do you remove lesser celandine? Is there a good method yet?
Unfortunately, there's not a good method. And, anytime those banks get flooded, you end up getting more of those. And that's just, and again, I'm not an expert on lesser celandine. I'm sure there is at least a few effective methods that have been studied. That is a great question from our, Sarah Meadows in my office. I could definitely run that question by Sarah and get you an answer, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm not sure what people's time limits are. I don't know how many slides you have left, John, but
I have about another 10 slides or so. I could try to rush through them as soon as quickly as possible. I think it's let's see, 8:07. I could probably be done by around 8:20 or so.
Okay, so I think, our presentation is, if people want to drop out, that's okay. But I'm quite happy to continue listening. If other people are, that would be great.
That'd be good. Sounds good to me.
Yep. So carry on.
All right. So the next area that I want to talk about was the Hamilton County Earthwork program. This was something that Kathy asked me to address in the regulatory role. And as I've kind of mentioned, that there's that's something that we do on active construction sites. So there's two things that we look for in an active construction site, right? So one is sediment and erosion control, and the one is slope stability. So I've got two pictures here. One is, of course, disturbed earth there, which is not being stabilized. And then you've got the actual slope hillside management there. You can see that little earth movement there on the hillside. It looks pretty precarious, but looks like he knows what he's doing over there. So let's talk a little bit about slope stability. So outside of California, Hamilton County used to spend the most in terms of hillside repair. And that's kind of the reason why our county commissioners passed the earthwork regulations. So anytime a property is slated for development, it comes before our plant reviewers. And we first of all see if it is what is the risk for a landslide? And if there's a potential for landslide, we'll ask them to submit a geotechnical report. And when the geotechnical report is submitted, we require our geotechnical engineer will look at it. And then if we require for them to have a geotechnical engineer we can require them to have a geotechnical engineer on site as the work is being done, so that the hillside is done, in a safe, secure manner, so it doesn't cause any loss to the properties or to life or any kind of damage for the neighbors. So that's part of the hillside stability aspect of it. And these are not uncommon sites that you'll see in Hamilton County, where you'll see hillside, and that has to do with the unique geology of Hamilton County. So our team of technical folks are here to monitor that, make sure that, if there's an issue, that's addressed. We have the same enforcement policy where we'll give them a notice of violation. They have 30 days to respond to it. We give them second notice of violation, 15 days to respond to it. And if they do not, we issue a stop work order and then turn it over to the prosecutors, who, if necessary, might bring a court injunction against the property owner for repair or for any kind of issues or non-compliance. So what does the earthwork regulations require? So the tops and the toes of the slopes are designed and placed in a condition of stability, geotechnical oversight for excavation and grading, geotechnical oversight in all cases where grading or terrain with known history of showing of evidence of landslide. So anytime there's potential for landslide, this automatically gets triggered, and we continue to monitor the site. The other, of course, is erosion and sediment control. So this is the part that is kind of through the MS4 permit. So we require for them to submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and then sediment controls need to be installed before the upslope clearing and grading. Inspections will be conducted by developer once every week, and after a rain event of ½ inch or greater. And then, of course, our staff will also go and inspect a site every month if it's over an acre, and prescribe timelines to maintain controls, stabilization of areas to remain idle, and areas on final grade. So we are actually one of those people that sign off on the occupancy permit. So, if we think that the site is not stable, we will hold the occupancy permit. So till they make sure the site is fully stable, it's then we release the site. So let's talk about what next. What is the future of the Soil and Water Conservation District? We've got some great questions, had some great discussions. So the old approach of the Soil and Water Conservation District, that we were local, we dealt primarily with soil and water, and we were traditional agricultural, traditional education. So our new approach, as we reach our 75th anniversary, and we're looking at what is it that's going to take us to that year 100. We're looking at a regional and global perspective. We're looking at how to address global issues. We're talking about sustainability. We're looking past soil and water sustainability. We're looking at green infrastructure. We're looking at partnership, and we're looking at cutting edge technologies as much as possible. So let's talk about collaboration. We've got this Regional Stormwater Collaborative, which is our education collaborative. We've got the Cooper Creek Collaborative, which is our collaborative that we deal with. We deal with the Cooper Creek, which we have various nonprofit and private and public sector partners. We've got our Master Rain Gardener program that we're launching, so people in the region can get certified as Master Rain Gardeners as well. And then we've got a potential Regional Water Quality AmeriCorps chapter that we're planning to launch as well, in partnership with other soil and water conservation districts in the region. So lots of great collaborative projects that are coming down the pipeline for our area. Expansion. So we're primarily dealing with the Great Miami River in terms of the water quality lab. We've kind of extended our support not only to GMR, but to the Mill Creek and the Little Miami lab as well. And we're happy to help them in whatever they need. We're trying to help them all achieve level 2 credible data status on their water quality data. And as Gwen mentioned, caring for our watershed has gone statewide, and we're always looking for volunteers for that. So if any Sierra Club member would want to volunteer for that, look over the proposals, grade the proposals. Gwen would love to have your input. So feel free to reach out to Gwen and offer your assistance with that. Like I said, they get over 100 proposals a year. So we need a lot of people to look at these proposals and grade them. Regional Stormwater Collaborative, as I mentioned, we had a discussion slightly before the meeting started. We're doing a regional policy research on stormwater education and the effectiveness of the education approach that we've taken. So we'll actually be benchmarking our effectiveness right now, and then in 5 years down the line in the permit cycle, we'll go back and do another policy research and see how much we've moved the needle on stormwater education. And we're doing that with the University of Cincinnati. So my final slide is next level environmental leadership. That's what we're addressing for the future. We're talking sustainability, green infrastructure, climate change. We're looking at behavior change in education and environmental justice. With that, that's my last slide. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm happy to stick around, take any questions that you might have.
Yeah, so Marilyn has a really good question, actually. Do you test for PFAS?
Lauren, I don't even know how to answer that question because I am not a water quality nerd. That would be a good question for Adam. If not Adam, I'm sure Dr. Miller would be happy to answer those questions for you. I know Dr. Miller, who is a former board member and is involved in the GMR lab and all of the labs, is a whiz at water quality, and he'll be happy to kind of share his knowledge on that for sure.
I have one question for you, please. Do you only do educational programs for students? Do you ever do them for like civic groups?
We do them for anyone that invites us, Kathy. So civic groups, we've done garden clubs, we've done, council meetings, we've done community meetings. So if you invite us, we'll come. We're always looking for opportunities.
Thank you.
So to follow on with that question, so is there like a catalog of different topics that you can share with civic groups or whatever? I mean, is there a list?
So we're actually in the process of actually updating our brochure, Lauren, and part of that update is we're trying to come up with a list for our adult programs. So if you go to our website right now and go to education, it lists a whole list of programs for classroom, for library and scout groups. But for adult education, we don't have a comprehensive list. But if you throw out an idea, we'll never shy away from it. Either we'll tell you that we don't have the expertise and we'll find you an expert on it, or if it's something that falls within our wheelhouse, we'll be happy to come and talk about it for sure.
Thank you. This is a good idea. The address for your website.
Of course, it's 8C, which is Hamilton County 8C SWCD, Soil and Water Conservation District.org, 8cswcd.org. And I'll go ahead and type it out in the chat as well.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks so much for taking all our questions. I feel like you didn't know you were going to be taking an exam.
No, I love questions because that means that we're all learning, right? Because now I'm going to go look at what PFAS is. So
yeah, you'll want to call it PFAS after that. It's the Tylenol or the Teflon chemical that's gotten into the water so many places. The DuPont from DuPont and some others, 3M.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Miller has an extensive knowledge base on that. I'll actually reach out to Dr. Miller and see what he has to say about it. So,
this is Gwen Marshall. I sample with the Mill Creek. As far as I know, none of the three groups are able to do testing for that PFAS thing. It's not one of the parameters we're looking at because I don't think there is a Jiffy test that's something that we can do. But since people are looking for things that they could do that are hands-on, water sampling is second Saturday. And like they said, there's a Little Miami group, there's a Great Miami group, and there's a Mill Creek group. And both groups have samplers that go out with the little buckets and the jars, but also people who work at the labs. And the lab work is usually from like 10:30 to 2 or something. But all three groups, and Mike, of course, is connected with all of them. But the Mill Creek, you just go straight through the Mill Creek Alliance. And I've been doing it for, I don't remember how many years now, for the Mill Creek. It's interesting. So I recommend it for anyone who's interested in joining. You wouldn't start off as a team leader. You would start off on a team, but you could become a team leader pretty quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I know there's great camaraderie in that group as well, in all of the groups, and it's just a great way to just not, just have a good time and just learn so much from the people. The many times that I've been out at the GMR lab, it's just been a great time to meet new people from various walks in life who are all passionate about the environment and are willing to do kind of step up and do something about it. So just a great group to be a part of. So definitely, I'm sure Gwen has the contacts for all three labs and can get you in touch with someone there. So
another thing, if people are real interested, and Sarah Faring is the one that works with us on that, and that is that the first Friday of every month from 9:30 to 11, we have a meeting with Watershed people, and most of them are professionals, and then I'm in the group. But it's now a hybrid meeting, so you can Zoom in or you can go in person. But Sarah Faring is the person to talk to because she sends out the meeting invitations, and it's very informative. So anyway, that's something else people might be interested in doing.
Is that held at the headquarters, their headquarters?
No, the place that we meet, the in-person people go down to the environmental building on Taft. But lately it's only been about 3 or 4 people in person. The rest of us are Zooming because it's so convenient. You can do that in your pajamas while eating breakfast. But there's a different speaker pretty much every month, and it's been very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's called the Regional Watershed Group, right, Gwen?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It came from Green Umbrella, and Green Umbrella got the idea that every or group should turn into a project-based. And we said, no, we're good. We like what we're doing with the coordination communication. And it wasn't something that fit them. So that's how Soil and Water picked it up and took care of it. And Green Umbrella does still show up. But it's just to coordinate, communicate, find out what's going on, tell people what you're doing, and then a presentation. It's a very good meeting.
Yeah, Sarah Meadows or Sarah Faring, either one of them can get you on that group for sure. So
Meadows used to do it, now Faring does.
So Faring used to do it, Meadows now does it.
It's Sarah with an A used to, Sarah with an H does it now, if I've got my last names wrong.
Yes, so Sarah with an H is Meadows, and Sarah with an ends with an A is Sarah
H
Faring.
is the one that's doing it now.
Yes.
Sorry about that, and I
No problem,
do well on it, but I should, because they
yeah.
both come to Mill Creek stuff.
Yeah, which is funny because we pulled the biggest trick on everyone, because Sarah Faring was in that role previously. Yes. And then when I ended up becoming director, Sarah ended up taking my position, which had to do more with PR. And then we hired Sarah Meadows to replace that position. So we confused everybody. In our office, we don't use the word Sarah anymore. We call them Meadows and Faring, just to make sure we avoid all the confusion. So
I'm sticking with an H and without an H.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Marilyn, thank you. My pleasure.
Yes, thanks, John.
Very informative.
I learned quite a bit. Very, very interesting. I like the slides. I like the video.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kathy requested the slides to be shared with the group, so I think they're recording the presentation as well. So I will make those slides available first thing tomorrow morning and send it over to Kathy and to Lauren. And if there's anything at all, ever you need that it's conservation, environmental related in Hamilton County or in the region, feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, we'll either get you the answer, or we'll give you the answer, or get you the right person to give you the answer. So yeah.
Okay.
Your
that's a
yearly
good deal.
meeting is also very informative, and so is that program that you normally do in the fall, the one that was going to be on the boat but ended up at the farm.
Yeah, so thank you, Gwen. So we do our annual meetings every year. So that's always a great time for you all to come and learn more about the program. I think Lauren attended that as well this year. So thank you for those who attended it. And we also do a field day, sediment erosion control field day that we do on the riverboat. So if you want to learn more about the business of stormwater and sediment erosion control on construction site, that's a great meeting to attend. And it's also a great way to meet the professionals in that field as well.
Good night.
Okay, well, thanks
Night,
again,
night,
John.
everyone.
And thanks thanks to everybody for joining and for the good questions. It's been a good session.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's been a
Okay.
pleasure. All
So
right.
long, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
John.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye.